Mama! Mama! Ifunanya dropped to her knees, pretending to help, but inside her, a cold voice whispered, "It is done." By nightfall, Amara's spirit had left her body. The home that once echoed with laughter now filled with wails. And in the silence of her sister's death, Ifunanya Envy finally smiled. Amara's ghost reached out as though to shield her children, but her hands passed through the air like mist. She tried to speak, but no sound came. She wept silently, watching as her children were punished before her. The village of Umuaka was a place where time seemed to move with the rhythm of the earth itself, slow, steady, unbothered by the haste of the world beyond. Children ran barefoot through dusty paths, their laughter mixing with the songs of women pounding yam in the courtyards. Goats bleated lazily, and the evening wind carried the smell of wood smoke and roasting corn. In this small village stood a modest mud house, roofed with raffia, but within it lived two treasures more radiant than gold, Ifunanya and Amara. They were sisters, bound by blood and by a love so fierce that neighbors often said they were twins, born in 2 different years. Ifunanya, the elder, had eyes soft as still water and a voice that calmed storms. She was graceful, her beauty gentle and dignified, the kind that made elders smile and whisper, "This one will bring honor wherever she goes." Amara, the younger, though restless and wild in spirit, shone in her own way. Her laughter rang like bells, her quick wit and fiery eyes drawing attention wherever she went. While Ifunanya's presence was like the cool shade of a tree, Amara's was like the sudden burst of sunlight after rain. Different in nature, yet together they were a perfect pair. Their childhood was filled with joy. They fetched water together at the stream, racing to see who would fill her calabash first. They played Ayo under the udala tree, their laughter carrying through the compound as the seeds clicked against the wooden board. In the evenings, when the moon hung high, they lay side by side on raffia mats, whispering dreams into the night sky, dreams of the lives they would build, the families they would raise, the adventures they longed for. Their mother, Mama Ugo, often smiled as she watched them, her heart warmed by their closeness. But their joy was shadowed by tragedy. When the girls were still young, their father Ugochukwu, a respected farmer, met a cruel fate. One stormy evening, he rushed out to rescue a goat that had strayed near the riverbank. The rains poured without mercy, and the river swelled like a beast unleashed. He slipped on the muddy slope, and before help could come, the waters dragged him away. By dawn, his lifeless body was brought back, and the compound was filled with wails of mourning. The loss carved a wound in the family, but it also bound the sisters more tightly together. Mama, though crushed with grief, gathered her strength and became both mother and father to her children. She taught them that life was fragile, that love must be guarded fiercely. She gave them equal affection, showing no favoritism, for she knew envy could grow like weeds if left untended. As the seasons passed, Ifunanya grew into a young woman admired for her calm beauty, while Amara blossomed with restless charm. Yet through all their differences, their love for each other remained the pride of the household. To the villagers, they were an example of unity, two daughters who moved as though their hearts beat in one rhythm. Sometimes, in quiet moments, Mama would gather them close and say, "A hen may have 2 chicks, but one will always scratch the ground faster than the other. Still, they both eat from the same earth." The sisters would laugh whenever she said it, thinking it only a proverb meant to amuse them. But the words lingered in the air, like seeds waiting for the right season to take root. The season of suitors had arrived once again in Umuaka. Every year, as tradition demanded, the kingdom opened its doors to men from distant villages and towns who sought wives among the maidens of the land. It was a time of festivity and beauty, when maidens dressed in their finest wrappers and coral beads, and proud mothers paraded their daughters with hopeful eyes. Drums beat in the marketplace, songs floated on the wind, and laughter echoed as young men admired from afar. But there was a rule as old as the kingdom itself. During this opening, men were permitted only to look, not to speak their hearts. To profess love directly to a maiden was forbidden. Only after the season ended could a man return with elders and gifts to declare his true intentions. This tradition preserved order and gave weight to marriage, for it was not won by haste or fleeting desire. Ifunanya, as always, drew the eyes of many. Her beauty was a song sung by the wind, a story carried beyond Umuaka's borders. Yet, though men looked, only a few dared to dream of her. They whispered to themselves that beauty alone was not enough to keep her home, and her quiet nature left them unsure of her heart. Sometimes, when she returned home, Ifunanya would sit in silence beneath the udala tree, sadness in her eyes, though she never voiced it aloud. Amara, on the other hand, was surrounded. Though not as radiant as her elder sister, her laughter and boldness caught attention like sparks in the dark. She teased the men with playful glances, her restless spirit drawing them near. Young men from distant towns murmured her name, eager to know her better. The contrast was plain. Ifunanya's beauty was admired like a painting in a shrine, but Amara's spirit made her the flame everyone wanted to touch. Among the suitors that season was Obinna, a man whose name carried weight far beyond Umuaka. He was a well-known car dealer who lived in Lagos, tall and broad-shouldered, with skin polished by the city sun, and a smile that turned heads wherever he went. Women whispered that he was the dream of every maiden, a man of wealth, stature, and confidence. When Obinna first came to the gathering, he noticed both sisters, but it was Amara who caught his attention. He admired the way she laughed freely, how her eyes sparkled when she moved among the other maidens. Though tradition kept him silent, his heart had already made its choice. A few days later, Obinna returned to Umuaka not alone, but with elders and kinsmen, as custom required. Carrying palm wine, kola nuts, and gifts, he went straight to the home mama. There, he bowed before the elders and declared openly what tradition had kept him from saying before. "I have seen your daughter Amara," he said with respect, his deep voice carrying across the courtyard. "She has captured my heart. I wish to know her family, her ways, and her spirit. And if the gods permit, I wish to take her hand in marriage." The elders nodded, pleased by his boldness but worried. Mama Ugo listened quietly, her heart torn between pride and unease. Ifunanya lowered her eyes, her face unreadable. And Amara? Her lips curved into a smile that lingered, for in that moment she felt the world tilt in her favor. In Umuaka, tradition was more than law, it was the rhythm of life. And one of the oldest customs was that the eldest daughter of a family must marry before the younger. To break that order was to stir whispers, to make tongues wag, and to bring unease to a household. So when Obinna, the wealthy car dealer from Lagos, returned to Umuaka with his kinsmen and elders to declare his intention, the village was shaken. Everyone expected him to ask for Ifunanya, the eldest, the jewel whose beauty had long been admired. But when his deep voice declared, "It is Amara I wish to marry," silence fell like a heavy cloth over the courtyard. The news spread swiftly. By evening, the marketplace buzzed with conversation. Women selling vegetables shook their heads, and men pounding yam exchanged knowing looks. "How can the younger marry before the elder?" they asked. "What will become of Ifunanya's place?" Even the elders gathered beneath the iroko tree, debating. Some argued it was not proper. Others, more cautious, reminded the gathering that marriage was a matter of the heart, not tradition alone. Mama Ugo herself sat long into the night, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Pride for Amara warred with sorrow for Ifunanya. She knew her eldest daughter's heart was gentle, and though Ifunanya smiled bravely, a shadow lay in her eyes. A few elders, bold enough to speak openly, even suggested to Obinna that he consider Ifunanya instead. "She is well raised," they said. "She is beautiful, wise, and calm. Why pass over the elder when custom favors her?" But Obinna shook his head firmly. His gaze never wavered. "I have seen Amara, and my spirit has chosen her. It is she or none." And so, for the first time in many years, Umuaka faced a break in its tradition. The younger daughter would marry before the elder. It was a decision that sparked whispers, stirred hearts, and planted seeds. Seeds that would one day bear bitter fruit. That night, long after the village square had emptied and the fires burned low, Mama Ugo sat in her room with a heavy heart. The words of the elders echoed in her mind, the whispers of neighbors still sharp in her ears. The choice of Obinna had broken tradition, and though Amara was triumphant, Ifunanya's silence cut deeper than any protest. Summoning her courage, she called both daughters into the small room where their father's staff still leaned against the wall, a silent reminder of the man who would have guided them had he lived. "My daughters," she began, her voice soft but steady, "you know what has happened today. Obinna has spoken his mind, and the whole village will speak of it. I called you here so we can talk as a family, not as gossipers in the marketplace." Ifunanya lowered her eyes, her hands trembling in her lap. Finally, she lifted her head and spoke, her voice tight with hurt. "Mother, do you think it is a good decision to humiliate me before the entire village? To let my younger sister marry before me, when you know what this means? Every eye will look at me with pity. Every whisper will remind me that I was passed over. My self-worth will crumble before their stares." Her words hung heavy in the air. Amara sat upright, her jaw set. "But I cannot be expected to dim my light because of tradition," she retorted. "I, too, deserve to be happy. Must I reject love because Ifunanya has not yet been chosen? Am I to remain trapped in this village forever, waiting for suitors that may never come?" Ifunanya turned sharply to her. "Trapped? You speak as though this house and this family are prisons. Do you think marriage is a game? Do you not see how your choice shames me? And do you not see," Amara shot back, her voice rising, "that I cannot live in your shadow forever? Everyone sings of your beauty, your grace, your quiet charm. But now, for once, someone has chosen me. Am I to refuse because of your pride?" The air grew tense as their words became sharper, their voices rising with each exchange. "If beauty were enough, men would be lining at your door," Amara said bitterly. "If wisdom were enough, you would not chase after every man who glances your way," Ifunanya snapped. The room crackled with anger, the bond that once held them shaking under the weight of envy and wounded pride. "Enough!" Mama Ugo's voice thundered, louder than either of theirs. She slammed her palm against the wooden stool beside her, making both daughters flinch. "Do you hear yourselves, quarreling like market women over palm oil? You are sisters, blood of the same blood. If you tear each other apart now, the world will finish the rest. Apologize, now." Shamed into silence, the two girls lowered their eyes, breathing heavily. The firelight flickered across their faces, one streaked with pain, the other hardened with defiance. They hesitated. Ifunanya turned her face away, tears gathering in her eyes. Amara crossed her arms, her lips tight. The silence dragged until Mama's voice rose like thunder. "Did you not hear me? Apologize." Amara swallowed, her defiance softening. Slowly, she turned to her sister. "Ifunanya," she said quietly, "I am sorry. I never meant to shame you, but my heart, it is drawn to him. Obinna has chosen me, and I cannot pretend otherwise. Still," she paused, swallowing her pride, "I will not take this step unless you give me your blessing. Will you permit me, Ifunanya, to marry before you?" The words hung heavy in the air. Ifunanya's eyes brimmed with tears, her chest rising with the weight of her pride and sorrow. Slowly, she nodded, though her lips trembled. "If it brings you happiness, then go. But do not forget me, Amara. Do not forget the sister who walked beside you since childhood." Amara's face softened with relief. She reached out, taking her sister's hand. "Thank you. I am sorry, truly. I promise I will make you happy too. When I reach Lagos, I will even find you a fine young man, handsome, rich, and ready to sweep you off your feet and treat you like a queen." For the first time that night, Ifunanya let out a shaky laugh through her tears. Mama Ugo sighed deeply, her heart heavy with dread. She prayed the quarrel would fade like smoke, but in her spirit she feared she had just heard the first crack in a bond that had once seemed unbreakable. Time moved swiftly, and the days seemed to run as though chased by the wind. Before long, the long-awaited wedding day arrived. The village of Umuaka stirred with excitement. Even children sensed it would be no ordinary union. Obinna, true to his name and stature, came prepared to paint the town red. From the moment his entourage arrived, the air changed. Gleaming cars rolled into the dusty village square, their polished bodies reflecting the Sunday. Women gasped, whispering that they had never seen such wealth displayed so boldly. Men nodded in approval, proud that their daughter would marry into a household of such affluence. The wedding festivities began with drummers beating rhythms that made the very ground tremble. Singers raised voices in praise, weaving Amara's name into their songs, calling her the bride of fortune. The aroma of goat meat, pepper soup, and roasted yam filled the air as women worked tirelessly to serve the swelling crowd. Palm wine gushed from calabashes, spilling onto the earth as elders blessed the couple. Amara was radiant, adorned in coral beads that shimmered against her skin, her wrapper woven from the finest fabric Obinna had brought from Lagos. She walked like one who knew the eyes of the world were upon her. Laughter and joy spilled from her lips, and every step she took seemed to say, "I have arrived." Obinna, tall and handsome, stood at her side, his smile wide, his pride unmistakable. He showered the village with gifts, sacks of rice, kegs of palm oil, and bolts of cloth. No one could deny his generosity. Truly, it was a wedding that would be spoken of for years. Ifunanya, too, was there dressed beautifully, her calm grace drawing admiration even as she tried to push her sorrow deep inside. She smiled and danced at her sister's side, her laughter echoing through the crowd. Many said, "Look how blessed this family is, 2 beautiful daughters, and one has caught such a husband." Yet, within Ifunanya's heart, the joy was mingled with a quiet ache. She watched her sister's happiness with love, but also with a pang of longing she dared not voice. Still, she clapped and sang, determined that no one would see the shadow behind her smile. Mama Ugo sat among the elders, her face lined with emotion. She was proud, deeply proud, that her daughter's marriage was celebrated with such glory. But her eyes strayed often to Ifunanya, and her mother's heart whispered prayers that envy would never take root, that love would remain stronger than the whispers of the village. As the sun dipped low and the night fires were lit, the celebration only grew wilder. Drums thundered, feet stamped, voices rose, and the village of Umuaka danced for Amara and Obinna. It was a day of triumph, a day of splendor, and yet, beneath the music and feasting, the unseen threads of destiny began to twist quietly, weaving a story the dancers could not yet imagine. When Amara's husband traveled abroad for business, the mansion in Lagos felt too large for her alone. With work to manage and 2 small children to care for, she longed for help she could trust. So she sent a letter to the village, begging her sister to come and stay with her until her husband's return. Ifunanya received the message with excitement. She had never left Umuaka before, never seen the city her sister often spoke of. Packing her best wrappers and jewelry, she set out on the long journey, her heart beating fast with curiosity and hidden desire. The first time Ifunanya stepped into the mansion, she felt her breath stop. Marble floors gleamed like rivers of light beneath her feet. Chandeliers sparkled like stars caught in glass. The walls were adorned with paintings of distant lands, and servants bowed respectfully when she entered. Amara embraced her warmly. "This is your home too, Ifunanya. Help me with the children, and together we will manage until my husband returns." The children squealed with joy, wrapping their arms around their aunt. They showed her their toys, their rooms, their books, laughing in innocence. For a moment, Amara's heart softened. But that night, lying in the guest room beneath a ceiling higher than any roof she had known, Ifunanya's thoughts turned dark. She whispered into the silence, "So this is the life she lives? Riches, servants, and honor all hers. And me? I returned to a mud house in the village. Why her, and not me?" The mansion was quiet, but in Ifunanya's heart, envy had begun to stir like a restless snake. Days turned into weeks. Ifunanya settled into her sister's home. Each morning, she watched Amara prepare her children for school, plaiting her daughter's hair, packing food in baskets, and walking them to the gate with motherly pride. Each evening, she saw her sister return from work, tired yet smiling, embracing her children with love. At first, Ifunanya admired her sister's life with awe, but slowly, admiration soured into something heavier. One afternoon, as she folded her sister's fine clothes and laid them carefully into a chest, Amara whispered, "She wears these like second skin, while I have never owned more than 2 wrappers. Is her blood different from mine?" She roamed the spacious house, touching polished tables and staring at the tall windows. At night, lying in the guest bed, she thought of her own life back in the village, bare floors, leaking roof, and silence. Her thoughts grew restless. If these children were mine, this house would belong to me. Her husband's wealth would be mine. Why should she, and not me, live this life? Jealousy, once a flicker, now burned like firewood catching flame. And with every passing day, Ifunanya's heart whispered not if she could take her sister's place, but how. The days rolled by, but Ifunanya envy only deepened. She watched her sister's every move, the way Amara's children adored her, the way neighbors respected her, the way her life seemed wrapped in favor. At night, Ifunanya tossed restlessly on her bed. The voice inside her grew louder. "As long as she lives, you will always be the shadow. Amara must leave the stage before you can take her place." One afternoon, while returning from the market, Ifunanya stopped at a roadside stall where ripe mangoes were piled high. She picked one, inhaled its sweet scent, and remembered how her sister loved the fruit more than anything else. A dangerous thought crossed her mind. Yes, mangoes. She will eat them without suspicion. Her heart pounded as she carried a basket home. That evening, when Amara asked what she had bought, Ifunanya smiled innocently. "Just fruits for us all. I know how you love mangoes." But when night fell, Amara slipped out of the house, carrying the basket to a corner of the compound where no one would see. With trembling hands, she pricked the golden flesh of the mangoes and poured in poison she had secretly purchased from a herbal seller in the village market. The fruits gleamed in the moonlight, beautiful and deadly. Ifunanya whispered, her voice shaking yet determined. "Sweetness will be her downfall. By these mangoes, her place will become mine." That evening, Ifunanya returned home, exhausted. The day at work had been long, and the city traffic had worn her down. She dropped her bag by the doorway and sighed as her children ran into her arms. "Auntie Ifunanya has been so good today," her little daughter said, smiling up at her. Amara looked at her sister with gratitude. "May the gods bless you, Ifunanya. I do not know how I would manage without you." Ifunanya forced a smile. "You know I will always be here for you." On the table lay the basket of fruits Ifunanya had bought. The golden mangoes seemed to glow, their sweet scent filling the room. "Sit, rest, eat," Ifunanya urged. "I will prepare supper while you enjoy these. They will refresh you." Amara laughed softly. "You know me too well. Mangoes are my weakness." She peeled one quickly, the juice dripping down her fingers, and bit into it hungrily. "Ah, sweet as honey," she said between bites. Ifunanya's hands tightened around the cooking spoon she held. Her heart hammered, her breath shallow, but she kept her face calm. The children sat nearby, playing with their toys, unaware of the shadow hanging over the evening. Minutes passed, and suddenly Amara coughed. Her laughter broke into a choking gasp. She reached for water, but her hands shook. "Ifunanya," she whispered, confusion clouding her eyes. Pain spread through her chest, her body weakening. She staggered, collapsed to the floor, her breath rattling. The children screamed. "Mama! Mama!" Ifunanya dropped to her knees, pretending to help, but inside her, a cold voice whispered, "It is done." By nightfall, Amara's spirit had left her body. The home that once echoed with laughter now filled with wails. And in the silence of her sister's death, Ifunanya envy finally smiled. After the funeral, silence settled over the house like a heavy fog. The children no longer laughed freely, and their father buried himself in work, often leaving early and returning late, unable to face the emptiness of home. It was Ifunanya who stepped into the role of caretaker. To the neighbors, she seemed like a blessing. They praised her for cooking, cleaning, and keeping the household together. Truly, they said, Amara's spirit lives on through her sister. But behind closed doors, Ifunanya was a serpent. She barked at the children for the smallest mistakes. Lazy, useless, she hissed whenever they stumbled. She beat them with sticks when chores were unfinished or when they forgot to greet her with the right respect. Her cruelty fell hardest on Amara's daughter, whose delicate face was the very image of her late mother. Every time Ifunanya looked at the girl, it was as if Amara's eyes were staring back, mocking her. One evening, when the child accidentally dropped a cup of water, Ifunanya rage exploded. She struck the girl so hard she fell to the floor, weeping. Standing over her, Ifunanya spat. "You think you remind me of your mother? You will regret that face. If you ever tell your father how I treat you, I will kill you with my own hands." The girl's brother rushed to help, but Ifunanya shoved him aside, calling him weak and lazy. The children learned quickly to keep silent. Their laughter faded into whispers, their eyes heavy with fear. To their father, they forced smiles, terrified of what would follow if they spoke the truth. And so, while the world believed Ifunanya was a devoted aunt, inside the mansion she ruled with iron fists and hidden threats. The nights in the mansion grew longer. Amara's husband, still broken by grief, often drowned himself in work by day and in palm wine by night. When he returned home, his eyes were heavy, his speech slurred, and his shoulders bent with loneliness. Ifunanya was waiting. She had studied him carefully, the way he lingered by the door where Amara once greeted him, the way his gaze wandered to the empty chair at dinner. She stepped into those empty spaces with cunning patience. At first, it was subtle. A hand on his shoulder when he sighed, a soft word of comfort when he mourned aloud, a meal served with tender care. "You are not alone," she would whisper, her voice low, almost trembling. One evening, after returning home drunk, he stumbled into the living room where Ifunanya sat. The lamp cast her face in warm shadows. She guided him to sit, offering him water, wiping his brow. Her touch lingered a little longer than before. "You have suffered enough," she murmured. "You need someone who will not leave you." His eyes met hers, clouded with drink and sorrow. He did not resist when her hand slipped into his. He did not pull away when her face drew closer. That night, the line between grief and desire blurred, and Ifunanya took what she had long plotted for. By morning, shame pricked at him, but she silenced it with soft words. "Your children need a woman's care. The house needs a mother. Who better than me, your wife's own blood?" Weeks later, when her belly began to swell with child, she pressed him harder. "Marry me," she begged, "for the sake of the children, for the sake of the house." And though his heart still ached for Amara, he agreed. The serpent had finally wrapped herself around the throne of the house. Ifunanya's wedding to her late sister's husband was small and quiet, unlike the joyous celebration that once filled the village for Amara. The people whispered, but no one dared speak aloud. Some said it was too soon, others said it was unclean. But the man was blinded by grief and Amara's cunning, and so it was done. Now she walked the halls of the house with her head high, wearing Amara's clothes, sleeping in her bed, and holding the keys to every chest and cupboard. To strangers, she was the dutiful wife who had stepped in to save a broken family. But to the children, she was a nightmare. She forced them to kneel for hours on bare floors if they spilled water or returned from school late. She beat the boy with canes whenever he dared to shield his sister, calling him lazy and weak, just like your mother. Her harshest rage fell on the little girl, whose delicate face mirrored Amara's so closely it seemed the dead woman still lived. The children wept bitterly, clinging to each other. Through their sobs they cried, "Mama, why did you leave us like this? You treated us like royalty. You loved us more than life. Come back, Mama. Please come back." And in that moment, something stirred. As Ifunanya raised her hand again, a cold wind swept through the room. The lamp flickered. In the far corner, a shadow thickened, taking form. The children's eyes widened. Their mother stood there, faint and glowing, tears streaming down her face. Amara's ghost reached out as though to shield her children, but her hands passed through the air like mist. She tried to speak, but no sound came. She wept silently, watching as her children were punished before her. The children gasped, sensing her presence, their tears mixing with relief and sorrow. But Ifunanya, blinded by rage, saw nothing. And so, while the children endured blows, the spirit of their mother wept with them, powerless for now, but restless, watching, waiting. From the night Chinedu and Adayeze cried out to their dead mother, Amara's spirit no longer rested in silence. Though powerless at first, each tear from her children called her back with greater strength. The children began to sense her more often. When Ifunanyas locked them in their room without supper, a gentle breeze brushed their cheeks, though no window was open. Sometimes, a faint glow warmed the corner of the room, and they heard her voice carried on the wind. "My children, do not fear. I am with you." Chinedu would clutch his sister tightly, whispering, "Mama has not left us." And together they found courage to sleep. But for Ifunanyas, nights became restless. She heard footsteps in empty corridors, saw shadows in mirrors, and felt Amara laughter echo in the air. Still, she hardened her heart, pouring her frustration on the children. One evening, their father returned early from work and found Adayeze kneeling on the floor, tears streaking her face, while Chinedu's arms bore fresh welts from a cane. "What is this, Ifunanya?" he demanded, his voice heavy with anger. "Why do you treat them so harshly? They are only children." Ifunanyas bowed her head, her tone soft and practiced. "My husband, do not mistake discipline for cruelty. Adayeze is becoming lazy, and Chinedu must learn to be strong. If I spare the rod, they will grow weak and useless." The children opened their mouths to speak, but Ifunanya's sharp glance silenced them instantly. Before the man could argue further, Ifunanyas reached for his hand and placed it on her stomach. "Besides," she whispered, lowering her eyes, "I carry life within me, your child. Do you not see? The gods have favored us again." His face softened. The news of her pregnancy blurred his judgment, drowning the questions that had risen in his heart. He sighed deeply, pulling his hand away. "If it is for their good, then please be gentle with them. I don't want any harm to befall them." That night, as Ifunanyas lay smiling in her room, her thoughts full of triumph, Amara's spirit stood at the doorway, her eyes burning with sorrow and anger. She bent over her children, kissed their foreheads with cold lips, and whispered, "Your cries strengthen me. Soon, justice will come."